Yes, may I help you? What's that? Oh, sorry, ma'am. I do not speak English. Spanish. Adios. Okay. Greetings, family. Sorry about that interruption. Don't know what that's all about. Greetings and welcome back to the Solar Show. We're going into the introduction today of ILLMATIC 33 1/3 by Matthew Gasteier. So let's get started. Introduction. Black, white. I am white. Over a decade ago, when I began to listen to hip hop, really listen outside of popular social context that the music had already seeped into across white America. This mattered. As a teenager in a predominantly white environment, there were two sides of the pop divide rather, rock and hip hop. Kids defined themselves by the music they listened to, still do, and even more so. Outsiders defined them as well. Listening to hip hop was essential associating oneself with the black community. How could I pretend that my life paralleled the lives depicted in this music? Hmm. I didn't yet know Rakim's famous line, "It's not where you're from, it's where you're at," which will become a battle cry of sorts for any hip hop head who didn't have the stereotypical black American experience. But it wasn't any sense of personal evolution that prompted my expanded musical palette, other than the simple freedom that comes with not allowing the music you listen to, the movies you watch, and the art you consume to define you. Music stopped being about the image and the lifestyle. The social ceased to have priority over the personal. It was no coincidence that I didn't really love music until I began to love hip hop. The same barriers had been holding me back. Now, a decade later, things are very different. I wasn't the only one that figured out that you can listen to hip hop without belonging to the hip hop culture. And as to the genre, has continued to dominate popular music. Anyone interested in the social climate of America ignores hip hop at their own peril. Articles in the source have evolved into articles in the New Yorker, have evolved into articles in National Geographic. However, naively, it is no longer important as a hip hop listener to identify yourself as white. Hip hop, created primarily by Black Americans, evolved from Black American music. It's no longer Black music, it is American music. This is, of course, far from uncharted territory. Since the dawn, excuse me for a minute here. Since the dawn of recorded music and before, music made by Black Americans have made its way slowly but surely into mainstream America. Jazz, swing, rhythm and blues, and finally rock and roll were all co-opted by the parallel culture. Through the path of these genres, though the path of these genres was not as well black and white as traditional history would imply, Big Mama Thornton may have recorded Hound Dog by Elvis, but it was written by a couple of Jewish kids. The oppression of Black artists because of the need for a paler face behind the music is undeniable. The difference between these earlier trends and hip hop's new path is that the newer art form was the first major post-civil rights musical jump to emerge from a Black community. Right as hip hop was ready for prime time, with the release of 1984's Run DMC, MTV started playing videos by Black artists and stretching out from their rock exclusive ethos. Okay. Since the major shift, Black artists don't have to worry as much about finding an outlet for their work. And therefore, white artists have had little opportunity to step in and fill a void. The audience for hip hop now looks like America. And I have never brought the decades-long assumption that the genre is primarily consumed by white suburban youths. But the face of hip hop remains very much a Black one. Now, the debate has shifted from what it means as a white American to listen to hip hop to what it means to engage in hip hop culture, to take an active role in performing, promoting, and where I come in, critiquing the genre. As hip hop moves slowly up the chain of respectability, hip hop writers have gained a higher level of exposure. With such exposure comes a degree of cultural power, which, whether the writer is white or Black, must be constantly examined. The intellectualization of art can have a dangerous impact on artistic intent when it is presented to the consuming public. Greater exposure to an audience that doesn't know where to begin means a generation of writers is setting the agenda for hip hop. They are the ambassadors of the culture. For white writers, this is even more important because, assimilated or not, hip hop culture is and always will be a product and a reflection of Black America. What does it mean to represent and evaluate a culture to which you do not belong? With that being stated, family, I'm going to take a little break. I need to get some water. I don't know, this coffee ain't doing so well on my stomach. I'm going to flush this out with some water. So I'll be back shortly. Okay, we back. Let me get one more sip. All right. Perhaps the greatest irony of this conversation is that critics and writers have almost always been removed from the works that they cover. In Cameron Crowe's fictionalized memoir, Almost Famous, which was originally titled The Uncool, the legendary rock critic Lester Bangs, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, tells the protagonist to beware of making friends with the bands. They make you feel cool, he tells his protege. And hey, I met you. You are not cool. There has always been a separation between the artist and the audience. That is more than just a stage or a television screen. A certain hierarchy that has birthed rock stars and fan clubs alike. But that separation has now been strengthened by an impenetrable divide. You can always learn to play the guitar, get a new haircut, do the hottest drug, or buy the latest kicks. You might even get the girl or girls in the end, but you can never change your race. On an episode of Ego Trips, the White Rappers Show, a program I followed with both low and high-minded interests, produced Prince Paul hosted a game show where each of the remaining 6 white rappers had to test their knowledge of Black culture. One of the questions was Black stereotypes that Black people secretly believe to be true. The results were expected. Better rhythm, bigger penises, and so on. And the whole thing was casual and light-hearted. But beneath the cavalier exploration of racial politics, indicative of a new generation's open acknowledgement of what was once taboo, there was a kernel of truth. In order to maintain their dominance in hip-hop, Black artists have accepted certain stereotypes about themselves, that their experience in America is more real, that the best way for a Black man to establish himself in the world is through brute force and sexual prowess, that their musical talent is natural and unique. With this cultural power at stake, it is no surprise that any white writer or artist will be viewed with great trepidation. Eminem, the great exception that cannot be ignored, has been Source magazine race baiting, notwithstanding embraced by the hip hop community. But the Detroit MC did not do it through his lyrical dexterity alone. Eminem found a legendary vulture in the form of Dr. Dre. He also perfected a unique performance style, as Sasha Faree Jones wrote in Haiku for Eminem after the release of the Marshall Mathers LP. What's going on here? The way you sound Black when you are conversating, but white when you rap. This remarkable characteristic of the most popular MC in history allowed him to become embraced by a pop community that wasn't yet ready for hardcore hip hop, while it simultaneously projected a non-threatening image to the hip hop community. Though Eminem still had problems and will always have problems being fully accepted, it's this ace up his sleeve that is often ignored. But to acknowledge this power dynamic within hip hop is to immediately understand the importance of the culture to a people that are underrepresented in the more conventional public sphere. Rather than attack this equation of Blackness and the cool, it is important to respect the tremendous contributions that Black Americans have made to American music over at least the last 200 years, and to address the issues of inequality that are the underlying roots of the impasse. In this context, Black defense of their culture seems straightforwardly logical. If someone has a stealing your television and claiming it as his own, the next time you see him in your house, you're going to wonder what the hell he's doing there. This brings up a legitimate question. If I believe this does in fact matter, that the power dynamic between Black artists and their cultural appropriators is a very real context in which any non-Black produced work must be examined. Why have I chosen to write this book? First of all, when treated with the respect it deserves, Black music is remarkably accommodating. There are few artists in hip hop who would care to restrict their listenership to Black people, even excluding the obvious commercial limitations which such restrictions would entail. Hip hop likes ruling the world. Despite its constantly evolving trends, slang, and social mores, it is not an insular art form. The hip hop's nation's appeal stretches well beyond its borders, and even its most patriotic citizens rarely advocate immigration reform. But more importantly, by stepping away from a culture, one hopes to understand it better, which is, as I'm sure you are wondering, precisely where the subject of this book comes in. ILLMATIC is perfect for such an exploration. Unlike Public Enemies, it takes a nation of millions to hold us back, and Dead Prayers, Let's Get Free. ILLMATIC is not transparently political. Unlike Wu-Tang's Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers or MF Doom's Operation Doomsday, ILLMATIC is not mythological. Unlike Dr. Dre's The Chronic or 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Trying, ILLMATIC is not gangster pop. Bored down and focused, almost defiantly New York born, the album is the vision of a Black man growing up in the projects during the 1970s and 80s, specific almost literally down to a street corner, and yet immediately recognizable. ILLMATIC is hip hop. I don't just listen to hip hop. I love hip hop. I can spend hours discussing which Poor Righteous Teacher's album is best, arguing over Common's evolution as an MC, and evaluating the respective solo careers of the core Wu-Tang. I wait months, sometimes years, for my favorite MCs as they continually push back their release dates. I cringe when Oprah or Billy O'Reilly insults a culture they do not care to understand or constructively engage with. And I am proud of M1 of Dead Prayers when he goes on Fox News and presents an intelligent and positive voice. Sometimes I wonder if a day goes by when I am not evaluating the impact and status of the genre, when I am not discovering some new album or some unknown aspect of a complex and living art form that I consider to be the most important cultural development of the last quarter of the 20th century. But I am not hip hop. Therefore, this is not a book about me. I won't tell you when I first heard ILLMATIC or what it has done for my life, or why I couldn't have made it through a tough period without the record by my side. Rather than partake in the culture or conversely force the album into my world, I want to interact with this work of art in its own context. By doing so, one can ideally reconcile the conventional concepts of artistic expression with the new paradigm that hip hop has created and which has become so misunderstood. I hope this does not imply that I aim to take an elevated position from above. It is not my intention with this book to expose the hypocrisy of hip hop, but rather the complex play of light and dark, good and evil, power and the powers that hip hop is able to accommodate. Nearly 25 years after Run DMC established the public representation of the black male experience, hip hop has ridden that authenticity and other status to pop dominance, the height of superficiality and acceptance. It's a testament to the genre's universality and multifaceted mythology that its reputation has, for the most part, remained intact over that time. Unlike previous Black American music, hip hop has maintained a high profile within the community for 30 years, while allowing itself to reach out not just to the rest of America, but the entire world, from Japan to Senegal and Sweden to New Zealand. Why it has been able to achieve such universal success while maintaining its status in the inner cities is a matter for another book. That it can appeal to such a broad range of humanity, however, is at the core of Nas' ILLMATIC, which is viewed with reverence by every version of a hip hop fan, from underground to commercial, New York to Los Angeles, conscious to thug. It is not because people do not recognize the doability of the album, the larger than life persona that stresses populist realism, simultaneously depicting two competing realities. It is because they see life in those contradictions. A true depiction of the world around them. It is this complexity that ILLMATIC represents so well, and that I am and that I aim to capture from outside looking in. With that, family, hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep your heads up, stay focused, and read. Peace.